So welcome back to SQL Server training. In today's class, we will talk about a new SQL Server object which is called functions. So what is a function? A function is a SQL Server object which will take an action or which will perform an action based on the given input, and it will return a result set. Okay, so basically function is a SQL Server object which will accepts a parameter which accepts an input parameter and then performs an action and returns a result set. Okay, so it should return a value. Function, it's all right. So that's what is function basically. So let's say you can have a function like a getDate, which I was always using in my classes. Select getDate. What does it do? It's a sure, go ahead, Divya. So function will consume an input, it will take an input, and then based on the input it will try to take an action and then return a result set. So in my previous classes I was talking about a function called getDate. So when you say select getDate, it will give you the current date and time of the system. Okay, so getDate is a system function. Okay, so depending upon this result set, if the result set is a scalar value, it can be a scalar value or it can be multiple columns and multiple rows. Scalar value is nothing but single column and single row. Scalar is nothing but 1 is called a scalar, or Robert is called a scalar value. Okay, that means it has only single column and single row. Multiple columns and multiple rows can also be returned. Okay, so based on these two differentiation, the scalar values functions are called scalar functions. Okay, the function which returns a scalar value is called scalar functions, and the function which returns multiple columns and multiple rows is called table valued function. All right, because columns and combination of columns and rows is nothing but it's a table, so it's called table valued function. So we have two different types of functions. One is the system functions. The example is like the getDate which we talked about. Okay, getDate is a system function, and then the user defined function. Okay, user defined function is nothing but the function which we create. All right, and then in the user defined functions, depending upon the result set, it is called as scalar function, it is called as inline table valued function, and it is called as multi-statement table valued function. Okay, so these are the three different types of functions which we will take an example, and then we will see how to work with these functions or how to create these functions. So basically, what is the use of a function? Function is nothing but it will if you have a business logic or something. Okay, so when we talked about views, we talked about the uses of views. Okay, when there is a repeating code that has a prospect of getting repeated in so many places, instead of repeating that same code, you will just put it inside one view and then you will use that view. Okay, that was one use of a view. Okay, and then that repeated logic may be business logic. Okay, so similarly in a function also you can put a business logic in one place, and then you can use that function wherever you want to evaluate that logic, or wherever you want to call that business logic. Okay, but then the difference between view and a function is view does not take any input parameters. Okay, so if you create a view based on a table, based on a select query, it will get you all the data out of that query. Okay, whereas function, it will take an input parameter, and based on that input parameter it will give you the result set. All right, so let's try to create a scalar function. So the basic syntax is create function and then the function name. Okay, so dbo dot, and then the usual standards, naming standard for function is UFN for scalar, and for table valued UDF or UTF, whatever it is. Okay, so UFN, or some people will write as function FN. Okay, so it's depends upon, but it depends from company to company. Okay, so right now I want to create a function which calculates the age of a person. Okay, so I can, in my application, I will, in many places I will be using this, I will be needing age calculated. Okay, because age is something which changes from day to day. Okay, or year to year. This year our age is so and so, and the next year it gets changed. All right, so you cannot save this age values in some table because they get changed. Okay, so your date of birth doesn't get changed. So in a customer table you will have a column called date of birth. Okay, and then you can calculate the age based on today's date and date of birth. So basically age is nothing but difference, number of days or number of years between the date of birth and current date, right? Whenever you want to get the age, current date, it should be calculated. So for that we will try to create a function so that in our whole application, whenever we need age, we will call this function to get the age. So I will say UFN get age. Okay, so that's the, and then I want to, it function will always consume a input parameter. Okay, so my input parameter will be date of birth, because I need to provide the date of birth and then I can calculate the age, right? So date of birth is the input parameter. So input parameter is date of birth, and then its data type is date time, and then it should return, it must return a value. So it should return integer value. What this function should give you, basically the age value. So age value is integer, so returns integer as begin and end, and then your logic goes here. Okay, so that's your create function name, and then that's your input parameters. Okay, and then it returns an integer value, and then as begin, that's your coding starts here. So what I will do is, before writing a function, or before writing a view, or before creating any object, okay, it's basically nothing but you will have to write a program and then make sure that program is working fine, and then take that program and then put it inside the object. That means a function or a view, whatever it is. Okay, that way you know that whatever query you are putting in there, you tested it. So first I want to calculate the age. So what I will do is, it's basically the difference between current date and date of birth. So we have a date function called date difference, okay, which will give you the date difference between two values. So let's say 2014-04-01. All right, that's my first date, and then my second date is 2014-04-24. Okay, so date difference is a system function. Okay, and then the first parameter is what way the difference it should calculate. Okay, so I should get the difference in days. If you want to get the difference in month, provide month. If you want the difference in years, just do year. Okay, so I want number of days. So this is your first one, this is your second one. So basically it will subtract these two, and then it will give you the number of days, 23 days. All right, between 04 and 041 and 24, it is 23 days. All right, so if you just specify 2013 and then months, it will give you number of months. All right, that's how. Similarly the years. So I want to calculate the days. Okay, and then in 1 year I have approximately 365 days. Okay, so let's say these are my number of days between my date of birth and current date. Okay, so let's say if I want to get the current date, I'll just do get date. Okay, so instead of putting in the value, I'll just put it as get date, because whenever we want to run this function, this is the date of birth and this is that current time. Okay, so it will give the days, the difference in days between these two. So let's say the date of birth is 2013-04-01, and then if I run that, it gives 388, and then in 1 year I have approximately 365 days. Okay, to get a precise value, you can use that 360.25. Okay, so if you select that, it says 1.06, so it's approximately 1 year. Okay, so we just want to get rid of that decimal. Okay, so for that you can use a function called floor. Okay, so floor is nothing but it will give you the integer value, smallest integer value, 12.3. Let's say select 12.3 and then run it. It gives you 12. Okay, and then if you say 12.6, it gives you 12. All right, and then you also have a function called ceiling, 13. Okay, it gives the highest closest integer value, and then floor gives the lowest integer value. All right, so now we got this 1.06, which we want to get rid of the decimal because age is an integer. So I'll just do floor. All right, so that's my query for age. So I'll just pick that and then put it here. And then instead of this value, I always want to get it from here. Whatever I pass it, it should calculate based on that date of birth. Okay, so now I can just say declare output variable integer and then select this output is equal to this. Okay, so declaring a variable and then I am assigning this value to this particular variable and then I am returning the variable. That's it. Okay, so basically you are consuming or accepting a parameter and then using that parameter you are calculating the age and then that age you are putting in a variable and then you are returning that variable. Okay, so go and then if you run that function, okay, so it says function created. Now how do you call a scalar function? Just select get date. Okay, so that gives current date, right? So similarly, instead of this system function, just give the new function name which you created, and then inside this brackets you have to provide the date of birth which you want. Let's say 2011-01-01 and then run it. See, 3 years between this date and current date. So that's how you can use the scalar function. So let's say in this table we have Robert Jack, okay, some four records. So what I will do, I will try to add a column called date of birth. So I want to do alter table and then add date of birth, okay, and then date time. So I'll just run that query. So my extra column got added. So I'll update the date of births. So update table, set date of birth is equal to 20 1985 0101. Okay, for which customer? Where let's say customer ID 2. There are two columns, two records, so both those will be updated. And then for 3 I just want to give 2001. Okay, so if I look at the data, I have this date of birth. Okay, so when I want to look at all the data, so star gives my customer ID, customer name and date of birth. Okay, so apart from date of birth, I also want to calculate age. So just call the same function here, and then instead of this value, pass the column value of this table. Okay, so date of birth column, right? So just pass the date of birth column. So for each record in that particular column, each value will be passed to the function, and then it will calculate the age. This value, calculate the age. This value, calculate the age. This value, calculate the age. Alright, so this function will be run against each value in your select query. Okay, so you can have any number of joins with all your big query. Okay, but you can use this as a column, and then you can apply it on the column, and then you can get the age. Okay, but then this should be a scalar value. Okay, to use it in the function, to use it in your queries this way. All right, so that's a scalar function. Now let's try to create a table valued function. Let's say in this is a customers table. Okay, now you want to get the information for a particular customer ID. Okay, so you will pass a customer ID, and then based on that customer ID you want customer name, you want the date of birth, and then you want the age. Okay, so we will try to create a function for that. So create function dbo dot UTF. Okay, so now I want multiple columns, so I'm trying to create the table valued function. So get customer details, and then what is the input parameter? Customer ID, and then what does it returns? It returns a table. Okay, because it's table means multiple columns and multiple rows. Returns a table as return, and then you can just write in your query here. Okay, so let's say the same query here. Okay, and then I want to pass where customer ID is equal to whatever customer ID we are passing here. Okay, so if we pass customer ID as 1, so only in the where clause it will get only that particular customer. Alright, so if you create that particular function, okay, we did not specify the data type. So I'm trying to create the function. Okay, so it says there's no name for fourth column. Okay, so this one I'll give it as age, and then I'll try to create it. So it's done, Now, how do you call this table valued function? Table valued function is nothing but it will give you multiple columns and multiple rows. It's nothing but a table. So how do you select the data from a table? Select star from table. So similarly, you can just do select star from the particular function. Okay, you need to pass the parameter. Let's say customer ID 2. See, only customer 2 information is showed up. Okay, but then this you cannot have this logic, this kind of logic inside a view. Okay, if you create the view, okay, you will be having like this: create view and then dbo dot view and then name as this one. Okay, where you cannot pass a customer ID, you have to specify it directly, and then once you create that view, if you select the data from that view, it always returns customer customer whose customer ID is 2. Only his details it will return. If you remove this where clause, it always returns all the data from the customers table. Okay, but then function, depending upon your information, your parameter, whatever you want, depending upon that it will get you the data. Okay, so if you specify 3, it will get you third customer information. All right, and then inside this we also used another function, a scalar user defined function which we created, right? So we can use that. So that's called as a inline table valued or inline table valued function. Okay, so here if you go back, you can see you call it as inline table valued function. Okay, there is also another different type of function which is called multi-statement table valued function. Okay, so we will see the difference also, don't worry. So the difference between this one and a multi-statement table valued function will be nothing but here you just said that it's returning a table. Okay, but then in multi-statement table valued function you will specify that the number of columns inside the table and the data types also. Okay, so it returns a table of, that's the table name. Okay, table variable, and then what is the columns it should return? Let's say it should return only customer name and customer name as varchar 100 and age integer. Only these two columns it should return. Okay, so now how do we write that? As begin, and then you can just remove that return. Okay, so this is the data type, or this is the table that you will be returning. So I can't have all these columns because my output will be only customer name and age. So customer name and age, and then you will insert into that particular table customer name and age. Okay, so basically the customer ID you are passing. Okay, so that's where customer ID goes in, and it gets the data for this, and then it will insert the data whichever is coming from this select query, and then it will insert into this particular table into these two columns. Okay, now you will be returning that table. All right, so if you create that, let's say that one, just specify it as return. That's the syntax. So if you create that one, now this one also is, since it's a table valued function, you can just do it the same way. Let's say 2. Okay, so and then run it. You can see customer name and age. Okay, so if you specify distinct, it will get you the distinct values. So now I changed the code inside the function. I want to alter it, so just say alter, and then the all the same logic. and then run your query. It will give you only one particular information because it will remove the duplicates. That is the meaning of distinct. Alright, so that's the table, that's the multi-statement table valued function. Multi-statement is nothing but you can write multiple statements inside the function definition. Here you can just specify one particular single statement. You cannot manipulate with the statements. Here you can manipulate. You can insert the data into this table, and after this you can just say delete from this table, okay, where customer, if you don't want to have customer ID is null, something like this, okay, some logic. If the customer ID is, or if let's say if the age is greater than or less than 18, okay, you don't want to return that customer, okay. So you are inserting customer details into this table, and then again inside that table you are deleting the data before returning if the customer age is less than 18. So you don't want that customer, okay. So now if you try to run this, change the function, and then if you run this particular query, you can see the age is 29. That's the reason it returned. And then let's run it for 3. It didn't return because the age for 3 was 13. That's the reason it didn't return. Okay, so you can write multiple statements here, but then here you cannot write that multiple statements. So depending upon your requirement, however you want, you can write it. If this will be more useful. All right, so that's how you work with the functions. Okay, so this function, now if you want to, instead of customer ID which you are passing here, you want to apply this particular function on a table. Okay, so let's say we have this table, right? So I will just select the data from this table. That's how you used the scalar function. Okay, now what you want is select star from same table. Okay, now you want to, for each customer in this particular table, for each customer you want to get the data from this particular function. Okay, so how do we do that? So all we have to do is cross apply, okay, and then the function name. That's how you work with the multi-statement table valued functions or table valued functions. Okay, and then here instead of passing 3, you will pass the customer ID. Okay, and then run the query. You can see this table has how much data? 2 and 3. Okay, and then if you applied this particular, for each customer you are applying that customer ID on this particular function. Okay, cross apply. So for each customer or each record in this table, it will try to get the data from this particular function, and then you can get the data. See, star means all the columns from this table and all the columns from this one. Okay, so you can also have an alias. So let's say as B. So if you just say A dot star, that means all the columns from table A. Okay, these were the data in the tables. And then if you specify B, all the columns from B. Okay, and then if you see, let's say A dot customer ID. Okay, so we are seeing only customer ID 2 because, but in the table there were 2 customers, 2 and 3. Okay, so what's happening to 3? 3 is not pulling up because this function will not pull if the age is less than 18. That's the reason it's not showing up. So if you use the first function, the single inline table valued function, okay, where you don't have that age logic, so if you run now, you can see both the data. Okay, so now what's happening is it's getting duplicate records. Why? Because in this table, if you look at the data in that table, 3 2 3 2, 3 is multiple times. Okay, so 3 is being passed to this function which will get 2 records. Okay, and then again 3 is passed, so again 2 records. Similarly 2 also is being passed, similarly this one also is passed. That's the reason it's getting you all these 8 records. Okay, so you want to get rid of that information, just say distinct. Okay, so now you got only 2 records which you wanted, 2 customers. Alright, so all the columns. So whatever columns you want to choose, you can just say b.age. Alright, so that's an important interview question. How do you use multi-statement table valued functions with tables? Okay, so you have to use cross apply. So those are the 3 user defined functions which we can create to store the business logic and then use these functions in whichever program we want to use. So now we will see other system functions. Okay, so we saw select get date. Alright, so that's it gets the current date and time. Now I can use a convert function, and then I want to convert into varchar. Okay, so let's say 10, and then I have some formats. Okay, so that's one kind of format. So convert is nothing but you can convert from one data type to another data type. So I'm converting the date time. Okay, so today's date and time I'm converting to this particular data type varchar 10 characters. Okay, and then that's the formatting option. Okay, so that's how 2014-04-24. Okay, so if you say 101, that's how your date looks like, and then 102, that's how your date looks like. So in whichever format you want for reporting purpose or for whatever purpose, you can use the convert function and then convert it to varchar and then use that formatting number. There are multiple other formatting numbers which you can find in books online. Alright, so convert is a function which you convert from one data type to another data type. Let's say you can convert s, okay, into an integer. It says conversion failed when converting the varchar s to integer because it cannot convert. So if you specify varchar, so let's say you have Robert, okay, and then you want to convert it to 3 characters. It gives you only 3 characters. Okay, so basically convert is a function which you can use to convert from one data type to another data type. If it's possible, it will convert, or else it will give you an error. So similarly, the other function you can have for convert is cast. So cast Robert as varchar 3. Alright, so similarly you can convert a date when you use cast and then get date as date time. Okay, so let's say this one, I'll just put it as 2014-01-01. Okay, so basically this is nothing but it looks like a date time, but then it's just characters. Okay, you know it is a date time, you know it means something. Okay, but then basically it's nothing but it's a collection of characters. Okay, so now this one I will want to convert to date time or cast to date time. See, it got converted to date time. So this value is a date time value. All right. So those are some functions. And then let's say you have a string called Robert. Okay. Now you can use a substring function to get a part of a string. Okay, so let's say you have Robert, you want to get the very first character. So that's your first parameter. To that first parameter to that this function will be whatever value which you want to work on, or whatever string which you want to work on, and then the next parameter will be from which position it should start, and then how many characters, that means the length. So let's say 1. So it's starting from position 1, it should get first character R. Okay, so starting from third position it should get one character B. Alright, so that's how it works. So if you want to get from last, okay, so what you can do, you can just reverse the string, reverse this string. So you are reversing this string, and from, so it reverse means the last one will come first. So from first you want first character, see T. So you reversed it. After reversing you want to get the first character, that means it's basically the last character. Okay, so that's how you can use the reverse and substring. So let's say there is ltrim and rtrim. Ltrim and rtrim is nothing but if there is any space in the starting or in the end, it will try, this ltrim will remove the left spaces, rtrim will remove the right spaces. Okay, and then similarly you can have other function called date part. So if you can see down, it shows you date part, interval, date time. Okay, so let's say we want to get year, and then from date. Okay, so from this date it will get you the year part. So it's 2014. So if you want to get month part, it will get you month. Okay, and then similarly day, it also give you minutes, 15 minutes or seconds. Okay, so like that. So there are multiple there are many system functions. So if you just say SQL Server functions, you can see, you can go to system functions, and then you can click built-in functions. Okay, so here you have different types of functions: aggregate function, analytical function. So if you click on aggregate function, you can see all these different functions: sum, average, count. Okay, so these are nothing, these are aggregate functions because it will aggregate your data. Okay, so let's say you have a table called create dbo dot customer salary table, and then customer ID integer, and then salary money data type. Okay, so now let's say insert into this particular values 1, 100, 2 comma 300, 4 comma 500. Okay, so I just inserted that dummy data into the table. Now that's my table. Okay, so now if I want to calculate the total salary of all customers, how do I do that? So all I have to just say is sum of that particular column, salary. See, that's the total value. Okay, so similarly you can say average. Okay, so in the same fashion you can use this count. Okay, so you want to get count of records in this particular table or count of customers. Okay, so just say count star and then it will give you 3 customers. We inserted 3 customers, so 3. All right, so if you also specified for another 500, okay, so 4 comma another 5000 and then insert it again. Okay, so now count star will give you all the number of records. If you want to get distinct customer ID, that means how many distinct customers are there, how many unique customers are there. 3 unique customers, because 1, 2 and 4. Okay, but then there are 2 salaries for 4. Maybe this is first shift and this is second shift, something like that. Okay, so that's about aggregate functions. And then there are analytic functions. If you are completely working on a statistical data or something. Okay, so there are a lot of other functions which I want you to go through. Okay, so there are conversion functions, cast and convert, parse, try cast, try convert, try parse. These parse, try cast, try convert, try paste are 2012 new functions. Okay, so you might expect a question in these. Okay, because people will try to ask you like, okay, what all functions do you know in SQL Server 2012? Okay, so you have to make sure that what is new in SQL Server 2012, because SQL Server 2012 came in new, so interviewers will try to ask you those kind of questions. So there are data type functions, date time, which will be working with the date time. Okay, and then mathematical functions, logical functions. So there are different types of functions which we will some of them we will go through whenever we use that kind of logic. Okay, but then it's good you have to go to each particular type of function and then see what are the different types of functions and then practice them. Okay, because there are hundreds of functions, so depending upon your requirement, the way you want, you just go ahead and use that particular function. All right, so just once you know what is function and how to use it, you can just read about it and then you can work on it.